All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into global megatrends,
Yeah.
and we're looking at this document, globalmegatrends.pdf.
Yeah.
And this is, we talk about a lot of pretty high-level stuff on this show,
Yeah.
but this is some really big picture thinking.
Yeah, this is macro stuff.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that's shaping the whole world.
Yeah. So if you're interested in, just getting a better sense of, like, the big forces that are shaping the future, this is the episode for you.
Yeah, and whether that's because you're in business or just trying to make decisions in your own life or just because you're interested,
Yep.
It helps to know what direction things are headed in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess maybe a good place to start is just like, what are we talking about when we say global megatrends?
Yeah, sure. So this document, it highlights 5 major trends that are shaping the world.
Okay.
And they are climate change, technological disruption, demographic shifts,
Okay.
globalization, which they call 2.0, and then social and cultural change.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think is really interesting about but the way they present this is that these are not like, 5 separate things, right?
Right.
Like they're all interconnected.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really talk about, climate change without talking about, like, how that's going to affect, where people live.
Exactly.
And, that's demographics.
Right. And that in turn will affect, the economy and technology and all of that. So,
Right.
yeah, they're all kind of intertwined.
Okay. So let's dive into some of the specifics here.
Okay.
Starting with, I guess, climate change. And this isn't just like, oh, it's going to be, a little warmer.
Right.
The report really lays out some pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is like we tend to think about it as just, okay, the temperatures are rising, but
Yeah.
it's so much more than that.
Right.
We're seeing, like, the document highlights extreme weather events.
Wow.
Droughts, floods,
Right.
wildfires.
Right.
The intensity of hurricanes has increased something like 20% in the last decade.
Wow.
Like it's serious stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is like that has a huge impact on everything.
Absolutely.
Like, from agriculture, I mean, how are we going to grow food?
Right.
To, like, where people can live. I mean, you've got rising sea levels.
Right.
And just like the basic, like, livability of the planet.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the report, the document mentions, like, potential mass migrations as a result of climate change. As areas become uninhabitable.
Right.
So it's really a huge challenge that we're facing.
Okay. And then, another big one, of course, is technology.
Right.
And this is, something that's changing so fast. And this document really highlights, like, the pace of technological disruption.
It is incredible. I mean, it mentions, like, artificial intelligence becoming so sophisticated that it can, like, diagnose diseases better than some doctors.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing and scary at the same time.
Right. Yeah. It's like, whoa, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But also, like, wait, what does this mean for,
Exactly. Yeah. Where do I fit in?
Yeah.
And that ties into a lot of the concerns about AI as well, like job displacement and ethical consideration.
Right. Right. Because if a machine can do your job better than you can, then what do you do?
Right. And then it becomes a question of, like, okay, so who's responsible when the machine makes a mistake?
Right.
Or how do we ensure that these technologies are used ethically?
Right.
So, there's a lot of really, really big questions that are being raised by this rapid technological change.
Yeah. And that brings to mind, automation. I mean, this is something we see happening. You see it with, robots in factories.
Right.
But the document suggests that automation is going to go way beyond that and affect a lot of different industries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're already seeing it in fields like law and finance, where AI can, like, analyze legal documents or financial data,
Right.
with incredible speed and accuracy. Right. So the document cites a study that predicts 47% of current jobs are at risk of automation in the next 20 years.
Wow.
And that's not just, blue collar work. That's across the board.
Yeah. It's like everyone needs to be thinking about this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do we prepare for a future where machines are doing a lot of the jobs that humans currently do?
Right. Yeah. It's a big question for education. It's
Yeah.
a big question for just like how we structure society.
Exactly.
It's a huge that's a huge topic.
Yeah.
Okay, and then speaking of really wild stuff, the document also talks about biotechnology.
Right.
And this is I mean, some of this stuff is almost like science fiction.
It does. It does sound like science fiction, but it's becoming reality.
Yeah.
We're talking about gene editing, personalized medicine.
Yeah.
Imagine treatments that are tailored to your specific genetic makeup,
Right.
potentially eliminating hereditary diseases.
Right.
The document even talks about like research into extending human lifespans.
Right.
So, it's really, I mean, it's exciting, it's scary,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that's going to be shaping our future.
Okay, so far we've talked about climate change, we've talked about technology, we've talked about biotechnology. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about demographics.
Okay.
And this is something that doesn't always get a lot of attention, but it's a huge force in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
The world's population is changing, and it's changing in ways that are going to have a big impact on everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the major shifts that the document points out is aging populations in developed countries,
Right. Yeah.
right? Which puts a strain on healthcare systems, social security systems.
Right.
But at the same time, you have developing nations that are seeing population booms,
Right.
which leads to increased urbanization, potential resource scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real balancing act.
Yeah, and you mentioned urbanization,
Right.
And this is, I mean, this is something that's very real for me.
Yeah.
I live in a city, and the document talks about this trend of cities becoming megacities.
Yeah.
And you think about the strain on infrastructure,
Yeah.
housing, all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not just about, the physical infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's also about things like, resource management, social services, all of that.
Right.
So it's a really complex issue.
Yeah. And it's also connected to migration.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
people are moving to cities for opportunity,
Yeah.
but also because of things like climate change or conflict.
Exactly.
Right. And
Yeah.
so you have these massive population centers that are growing all the time.
Yeah, yeah. The document predicts that by 2050, like 68% of the world's population will be living in urban areas.
Wow.
So that's a huge shift.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Okay. So we've talked about climate change, technology, biotechnology, demographics, urbanization. Let's talk about globalization. And this is another one that's really interesting because we've been living in this this kind of hyper-connected world for a while now.
Yeah.
But the document talks about this shift towards what they call globalization 2.0.
Right, right. And it seems like, globalization 2.0 is characterized by things like rising nationalism,
Mm-hmm.
trade wars,
Right.
kind of a reassessment of global supply chains.
Right.
Companies are looking to diversify their production, their sourcing,
Right.
to mitigate risk.
Right.
And you think about the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that really exposed just how fragile some of these global systems are.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely made everyone rethink, their reliance on those global supply chains.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've got all these shifts happening, in power and resources.
Right.
The document also talks about social and cultural change. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was, this widening gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. Inequality is a huge concern.
Yeah.
The document cites a statistic that the richest 1% of the world's population now owns more than half of the world's wealth.
Wow.
Which is just it's a staggering statistic.
Yeah.
And that kind of disparity can lead to social unrest, instability,
Yes.
all sorts of problems.
Right, right. And then, of course, social norms are changing as well.
Yeah.
The document talks about evolving attitudes towards gender, identity, family structures. And it feels like these shifts are happening faster than ever before.
They are, yeah. And I think, technology and social media are definitely playing a role in that.
Yeah.
It's creating both opportunities
Hmm.
for greater inclusivity, but also the potential for, backlash and cultural clashes.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a really interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, yes.
Um, okay, and then last but not least, one of the things that the document talks about is information overload,
Right.
and this is something that I think we all feel. With the sheer volume of information and misinformation
Yeah.
that's out there, online.
Right. And it really makes it hard to know what to believe, and
Yeah,
it erodes trust in institutions. It makes it hard to have, productive public discourse, and it even, impacts our mental health.
right.
So it's a real challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so to kind of wrap things up here, this document, globalmegatrends.pdf,
Yeah,
it paints a pretty complex and interconnected picture of the future.
it does.
Climate change, technological disruption, demographic shifts, globalization 2.0, social and cultural change.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in.
it is. Yeah.
And I think the thing that really strikes me is just how interconnected all of this is.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the key takeaways from the document, I think, is that, we can't think about these things in isolation.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they're all impacting each other, and
Mhm.
we have to we have to think about them holistically if we're going to navigate the future successfully.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that really stood out to me as well.
Right.
Is just how interconnected all of this is, and just the sheer scale of it.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about the document's kind of final point,
Right.
which is that
Mhm.
yes, these megatrends are shaping the world, but they also present
They
opportunities.
do. Yeah.
So, you know, what stood out to you?
Well, I think one of the things that I found really fascinating was, just the potential for biotechnology to
Mhm.
really transform our lives.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
idea that we could, potentially eliminate hereditary diseases or extend human lifespans.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So, to our listener out there, we've thrown a lot of information at you today.
We have.
These are big topics.
Yeah.
But hopefully, this has given you some food for thought.
Yeah, definitely.
And as we always say, like the point of this is not to predict the future.
Right.
It's to just kind of help you understand the forces that are shaping the world.
Exactly.
So what role are you going to play in navigating these changes and shaping the future?
Yeah.
That's something to ponder.
That's the question.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time.